Ready. And action. There'll be no foolish wand waving or silly incantations in this class. Extra credit for anybody who knows where that comes from. Howdy, howdy, howdy. It's Professor Victor Singing Eagle yet again to harass my students. Before I even start, I'm going to turn around over here and check to make sure this thing is working. It is 35 seconds into the video. Yay! This video is probably going to be cut into two because nobody showed up for class today. So that means I have to make a video for you. Are you ready? Let's get started. Now, those of you who are used to me in Sisseton, Wahpeton College Native American Literature class, you know my silly routine. Usually I start with a roll call and I'll do announcements and then I'll go into launching into what we got to talk about. However, because nobody showed up and I'm starting with a whiteboard, I'm doing everything backwards. So first things first, we're going to talk a little bit about, again, Native American humor, or actually I'm going to say First Nations humor, because you know that I'm also Canadian Indian. And I've got a lot of connections to other First Nations people over in Taiwan, which we don't need to talk about right now because I talk too much. Now, let's focus on something that we discussed a couple weeks ago. I don't know how many weeks ago it was, but here they are. If you remember that I mentioned, why am I all tongue-tied? Probably because I'm nervous. Let me just focus. The message that I'm trying to get across to you is something that I presented at a conference in Canada several years ago. You remember I talked about this before, and I said we have 4 S's in First Nations humor, and I gave you a very, very brief account for it. I said, well, the first S is separate. I'm going to put up here A, separate, S-E-P-A-R-A-T-E. You are going to see I'm reading from my little lesson plan, and I'm going to post this on e-learning for you guys as well. I'll just go ahead and use a different color too. So, separate First Nations or Native American humor does not involve non-natives. This is just natives talking to fellow natives and joking around. So I'm going to put up here, sometimes it shows up in traditional stories. Traditional stories. And I'm going to put over here, trickster humor. A lot of our stories have tricksters or some kind of trickster. Oh, my handwriting sucks today. Trickster humor. Pardon the Canadian spelling, but you're stuck with me. So again, you're going to see this in modern literature as well. Even though I have traditional stuff and traditional trickster humor, a lot of times you might see maybe in, what's the fellow's name? Sherman Alexie, or some other book where just natives talking to fellow natives and we're just hanging out and making jokes. I'm going to put on here contemporary. I'm going to be lazy, literature. This is the first S. Let's do the second one. And I got some of this from our beloved professor, Du Huawei, which name I can never remember how to say it in English. DeMars. Harvey, there we go. Subversive. And Harvey DeMars is very good at subversive native humor. What do I mean by this? Well, usually subversive native humor deals with American Indians, Canadian First Nations, Taiwan First Nations, whatever, Aborigines of Australia, New Zealand. They are making fun of non-natives, usually of colonial powers. Their humor is at the expense of colonizers. So let's put that up here. We're going to put up here stories of resistance and resilience. Resistance. A-N-C-E or E-N-C-E? A-N-C-E. There we go. And resilience. Resilience. A-N-C-E? Is that right? It probably is E-N-C-E. Doggone it, I keep getting that wrong. I shouldn't do this with my finger. There we go. Resistance and resilience. We've got biting, sarcastic satire. Oftentimes, we make fun of twinkle bunnies and wannabes. If you don't know what a twinkle bunny and a wannabe is, I have to show you in the second part of this video. Make sure I put it up on the screen so you can see what a twinkle bunny is. Let's see. We often will mock cultural appropriation, which is very common because if you remember what I mentioned before, I said that it's kind of in the rise. It started in the 70s and the 60s, but it really got crazy in the 80s where people were starting to worship the noble savage, I should say. And people were like imitating native culture, non-natives, especially, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to have to, the Chmokmanuk. They were taking our clothes style, they were burning sweet grass and sage and selling it to each other, which is a mortal sin in my tribe. You know, to sell sweet grass and sage is a terrible, terrible thing to do, but we won't go there. Stealing Native American chants and stories and prayers and kind of making a mockery of it. If you remember, no, you guys are too young to remember crystal heads from the 80s. People were grabbing crystals and mixing native traditions with East Indian tradition and Buddhist tradition, mix it all up in a big old pot and look all airy-fairy and hippy-dippy about it. We're making fun of that stuff in our subversive humor. The last one is symbiotic. I'm going to put it up here. See, symbiotic. Symbiotic humor. Symbiotic native humor, and I'm probably going to have to move this up here because I don't know if you can see it. Symbiotic native humor is oftentimes in cooperation with colonial powers, or you might have a white dude and a native dude hanging out and they're joking around with each other. That's the easiest way I can explain it. So I'm going to put up here, a lot of times we will make fun and have fun with cultural differences. Cultural differences. Instead of making fun of our non-native buddies, we're going to joke around with them a little bit. I wish I could think of some good jokes to tell, but I'm all joked out today. I don't know what it is. Is it the caffeine? Who knows? There's a lot of goofy pop cultural references. I'm going to be lazy and just do REF because I got to keep this video short. Let me see. Who's good at this? Again, Sherman Alexie, Tiffany Midge, and you'll see in the stories that they write, if there is interaction with natives and non-natives, they're going to be joking around with each other, usually pop cultural wise, music especially, shopping at Costco or Walmart. You'll see it in their stories. Both Sherman Alexie and Tiffany Midge are really, really good at this. incorporating non-natives into their stories. Again, subversive, I would probably put Tiffany Midge here as well because she does really make fun of non-natives. Another one up in Canada is Thomas King. He's always mocking non-natives and their attitudes towards us. I should bring in some of their literature to read next time. We'll see. And then, of course, separate, we already know we've got Leslie Marmon Silko. We've got Louise Erdrich. Sometimes Louise Erdrich will have she'll move over to the symbiotic, meaning that she's got the interaction with the natives and the non-natives in some of her novels as well. Now that's the main thing I was going to throw at you for the moment. I'm going to cut this video short. I'm going to switch this thing around and we're going to look at some gobbledygook up on the screen, and I'm also going to post some videos on e-learning for you guys to look at. Thank you so much for being so patient. You guys have an awesome rest of the week and an awesome spring break. Thank you so much. Talk to you later.